first off, here's our surveyor and that you're going to be using here. In the lecture you had described the sections of the surveyor where you have the horizontal arm, the vertical arm, the mandrel, the base, and we have our surveying table, which you'll hear some of us old timers call a gimbal, but I think most of those people are gone. And then in front of it we have the instruments. Now all of this, I'm understanding, might be obsolete in that you can't file. But here you have what we call the analyzing rod. I'm trying to see, am I really focused in on that well? There we go. The analyzing rod, which is just straight. Then we had the sleeve that goes with the carbon marker. That's just to keep the carbon marker from breaking, which is like a big, thick pencil lead. Then we have our undercut gauges. You have the 010, 20, .02, .03, and they have the lines on them to indicate that. And then the last thing here in black, we have roulette. That's a carver. That's for carving wax with the surveyor. And you would have used that in the special denture technique course, but we didn't have you do a survey crown at that time. So now Paul is going to demonstrate how to use this. As pointed out before, you lock it onto the survey table. Putting a little of that Co-Comfort powder, it doesn't take much, but that's like putting ball bearings on there, and it allows that to slide around. I found if you use this, I didn't need the sleeve on my carbon markers. The carbon markers got broken because the base was sticky, and when you were trying to move, it would cause it to jump. Now he's putting, I assume, the analyzing rod on there. And he can go around and look at his mesial inclinations. So that means anterior, posterior, the teeth are aligned about what you want. Now you're not marking it with this, you're just seeing where you have it lined up. So if you have to reduce enamel in order to get the guiding planes, you're going to do it kind of equally. You're not going to have to butcher one tooth for the sake of the other. But then you can also look on the buccal and the lingual approximately where you think you're going to need undercuts for retentive clasp. Now he's getting ready to put the carbon marker on with the sleeve. Bring it down and encircle the tooth by moving the tooth. You can see you want the marker touching somewhere in the middle, but not the tip or up by the mandrel. But actually doing it on these gorilla teeth is a little tricky almost, but they're almost too big. What's the idea for you to see these features? Okay, now I think they define the height of contour as the greater circumference around the tooth that you have marked. I always have thought of it as the maximum bulge on a contour of the tooth. But later we're going to talk about superbulge and infrabulge. And infrabulge is where your undercuts are going to be, and superbulge, of course, is towards the occlusal surface or the incisal surface. Now he's putting on an undercut gauge, which we normally use a .010 for most clasp.
Do you remember the assignment? Which undercuts is it? Buckle?
The mesial buckle on the molar and distal buckle on the molar,
Okay.
mesial buckle on the bicuspid. So he would look where that is. Here's colored pencils if you want them. Unless he's changing, he was marking it in red, but which I used to do, where that undercut gauge touches the tooth. And on the diagnostic one, he can actually scratch it a little bit. You don't scratch it on the final master model that you're sending in for processing. Now here he's marking the four corners of the mesial buckle and mesiolingual and distal buckle and distal lingual on the molars and the bicuspids. I think that's about what he wanted on this, isn't it?
Yeah.
Why don't you try tripoding?
Yeah.
He was talking about you didn't need to tripod the gorilla teeth, but you can still do it. Get 3 widely separated marks. And when you do it, you don't change the elevation of the mandrel, because these 3 marks should be on a flat plane. 3 nonlinear points in space dictate a plane. Now he might have found out that he needs to drop the mandrel down maybe lower and remark those other ones. But you don't want them in a line, or you can't real accurately reposition the model. And you will do this before you send one of these models to the lab to be blocked out, so the lab tech can put it on his surveyor in the same way if he can buy a surveyor. Now, the other one you've got there is defunct, isn't it? Is it?
Yeah. So that's it.
Okay.
Okay, so that's 1,
2
2,
and 3.
3.
Mhm.